Okay, hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. So for today's webinar, we are going to be talking about this week's pre-market live analysis. Before we get started, just let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me and see me clearly. On my side, it shows that the audio should be fine, but if there are any issues, feel free to let me know. Okay, let's just go ahead and get started. So as per usual, a disclaimer and risk warning: trading forex and CFDs carries a high level of risk to your capital, and you should only trade with money you can afford to lose. Trading forex and CFDs may not be suitable for all investors, so please ensure that you fully understand the risks involved and seek independent advice if necessary. Please read and ensure you fully understand our risk disclosure. So here's our agenda for today. We are going to be start off by talking a bit about the FX majors first, followed by commodities, cryptos, and indices, and lastly any custom requests. But anyway, we will be going through all of the requests that you guys pop into the chat, so just feel free to let me know. Okay, so I'm Melanie and I'll be your speaker for today. I'm an investment analyst at Rocket, who are finalist for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021. We specialize in technical analysis with a focus on Fibonacci retracements, extensions, and projections. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let me just pull out my charts. Also, I woke up today with a swollen eye, so that's why, if I'm looking a bit sleepy today, it's because of that. Okay, you guys should be able to see my charts right about now. Let me know if there are any requests. Okay, it's not really showing up. Just give me 1 second. Hmm. Okay. So before we get started, let's just quickly look at this week's events. Um, okay, so this is forexfactory.com, which is the economic calendar that we typically use. Of course, there are a bunch of other options out there. You can feel free to use whichever you prefer. So for this week, you can see I have it filtered to mainly focus on the orange and red icons, and that is the medium to high impact events. You can, of course, also look at the lower impact events or any non-economic events. You can also filter out any currencies that you're not currently trading. I typically prefer to have all of them, to look at all of them. You can also look at the different event types, so on and so forth. Okay, so if we look at all of the events, you can see there are a lot more events to get through, including the lower and non-economic events like bank holidays. So that's why we typically just focus on the medium to high impact events. So let's start off with today we have Eurozone Spanish flash CPI. So this is inflationary data and it's forecasted to come out slightly higher than previous at 2.6%. We also have US Chicago PMI, as well as US pending home sales. On Tuesday, tomorrow, we have China's manufacturing PMI and non-manufacturing PMI data, both expected. Manufacturing is expected to remain the same. Non-manufacturing is expected to increase slightly. And we also have the US S&P on CS Composite 20 HPI year-on-year data, which is expected to drop to 4.1%, from a previous 4.6. Wednesday will be New Year's Day, so we don't have any economic data on that day. On Thursday, we have the US unemployment claims, which is expected to increase slightly to 220K, as well as final manufacturing PMI. On Friday, we have US crude oil inventories, ISM manufacturing PMI, and ISM manufacturing prices. Okay, now let's take a look at some charts. I can see we have a request for. Yeah, I believe we have a request for gold, so let's go ahead and look at that first. So I like to start off by looking at our higher time frames and then work our way down. Okay, I'm going to just get rid of my webcam, but let me know if you guys can't hear me. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, you can see prices generally recently falling, and on our daily time frame, we can see prices fluctuating as well. I'm going to be adding my first support over here. And my I guess an intermediate level of support will be over here. I'll just represent it with a dotted line. And for my first resistance, I'll place it at this double swing high. And maybe just a second resistance up there. Okay, so these are the levels that I'm going to be using for gold. Now I'm going to go in with our Fibonacci levels to represent these levels, or rather to support these levels. So starting off, I have a 50% retracement that lines up with my first support. I also have I think 23.6 that lines up nicely. Okay, now if I zoom in, okay, my 78.6, as well as the 100 line up nicely as well with my first and second resistance. Mm, okay, 100, my 127 lines up as well, so I'm gonna keep that. 127 lines up with my first support. So over here, we have what's called our Nike tick, retrace or rather extension. Over here, so here it's inverted. So if it's upright, it'll just look like a normal tick. Okay, I think that's all the levels that we have. So now I'm gonna go in with our indicators. I like to start off by looking at Ichimoku and MACD because at one glance you can tell exactly what the signals are. So on our Ichimoku, mm, on our Ichimoku you can see prices moving below the cloud. MACD is also giving us a bearish signal. Okay, let's take a look at some other indicators as well. So on our moving averages, prices recently crossed above um, both of the indicators, which is giving us a bullish signal. Bollinger Bands aren't really telling us much here, so I'm going to remove that. Let's look at parabolic saw. Okay, this will be my first support. First resistance just here. Okay, and then okay, I don't have any levels here. I'm gonna place my second support over here. 38.2 lines up with my second support. I'm also going in with a projection. Okay, none of the levels line up. Okay, I think we might have another retracement here. Okay, my 61.8 lines up with my first resistance. And we have another Nike tick here, I think. Okay, so my 161, I'm just gonna keep that. The 138 and the 161.8. Okay, so again, we have the Nike tick shape here that I mentioned earlier. So these used the levels that are greater than 100%, namely the 127. Normally we use the 127 and the 161.8. Okay, I think that might be all levels that we have. Now let's go in with our indicators. Again, I'm starting off with Ichimoku and MACD. So prices are moving above the cloud on our Ichimoku. So that's giving us a bullish signal. MACD, you can see, is also giving us a bullish signal here. So they both support our bullish analysis. Indicators wise, let's look at, oops, we already looked at MACD. So I'm looking at EMA, SMA, RSI, and stochastic. Okay, and on our stochastic, okay, stochastic isn't really telling us much. I think on our RSI we have prices. Yep, we have prices moving in this ascending trend line. Okay, so that also supports our bullish analysis. We also have prices moving above the EMA and SMA, which also supports our analysis. Bollinger Band wise, you have prices pushing above that upper band, so that also supports our analysis. So it's pretty bullish signals over here. Okay, so once again, I'm expecting prices to continue pushing above towards the first resistance. I'll also just add a second resistance for reference um if prices push above that first resistance, we have another level of reference. Mm, maybe okay, I'm not sure if it'll move all the way up here. So I don't want to put that up there for now. Mm, okay, maybe just in line with of 161. Okay, at this swing high here. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay, we have a request on euro dollar as well. So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so on a weekly time frame, we have prices generally looks like it's generally dropping. Daily time frame, we have prices recently bouncing off the swing low here. Okay, so a good habit is to try and pull it back as far as you can, just so that you can see how significant that level is. So here I'm going to place my first resistance. My second support, I will maybe place it here instead, at the swing high here. Okay, now let's go in with our Fibonacci levels. So going um in with a retracement first. I have a 38.2 that lines up with my first resistance. I'm also going in with a Nike tick method again, which is what we did earlier. You can see my 161 lines up nicely with my first support. Okay, my 61 and the 50% both line up. Let's go in with a projection as well. Okay, my 100% Fibonacci projection lines up with my first support. Okay, I think that might be all the levels we have again. So let's take a look at some indicators. Prices are moving below the cloud. Ichimoku is giving us a slight bullish signal, very slight. Um, so I'm going to move MACD for now. Okay, let's look at Bollinger Bands. Okay, we have prices pushing below that bottom band. So that is a bearish signal. Let's maybe also take a look at our moving averages. EMA, SMA, RSI, stochastic. Prices, let me just zoom in. Prices are recently moving below the EMA and SMA, so that's also a bearish signal. Okay, and let's look at our RSI. Okay, again, RSI prices generally moving in this descending trend line. Let's see stochastic. I think, yeah, I think stochastic might be moving a bit in this descending trend line as well. Yes. Yep, slightly. Okay, so they are both giving us bearish signals. Okay, so that also supports our analysis. But again, this first support is quite a big confluence area. So we might see a bit of resistance in this area here that I'm highlighting. So I'll only go in for a sell if prices actually break out of this area towards our second support. Okay, any questions? Let me just check our chat really quickly. Okay. Um Bitcoin, yeah. And Kiwi dollar. Okay, let's look at Bitcoin first. Okay, hi. For those of you guys who've just joined, I just checked our chat. Um, so my camera, I just want to explain my camera is off because I woke up with a swollen eye and I don't really want you guys looking at that. So, yeah. Okay. Oops. Hmm. Just give me 1 second. Okay. We were looking at Bitcoin. Okay, it's a bit zoomed in, so let me just figure out how I can zoom out. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, you can see prices generally moving upwards. There's been a recent slight drop. And we see that on our daily time frame as well. Okay, I'm going to place a first resistance up here, or rather, I'll place a first resistance here and a intermediate resistance over here because it's very close to where price is currently at. Okay, so we're not, if we add our first resistance over here, there isn't enough room for prices to kind of move. So yeah, so that's why I'm just placing an intermediate resistance and support just for reference. So the intermediate levels, just to clarify, are not your support. I mean, not take profit or stop loss levels. Okay. They can be entry levels though, so it's entirely up to you. Okay, so my first support, I'll place it here. Okay, going in with retracement levels again, minus 61 lines up with my first support. 23 lines up with my intermediate level as well. So I'll keep the 23 and 61. Next, I think we might have another intermediate, or rather another 90. Okay, price has already broken out this level, so we can't use that anymore. Let's look at projection. Okay, my 100% lines up. We might have another Nike tick here. Okay, price has already broken out of this 161, so we can't use that. Another retracement here. The 38.2 lines up with my first support. Okay, 23 is a bit far, so I'm not gonna keep that. Okay, I think that's all the levels we have. So now let's look at our indicators to see if they support our analysis. So prices, MACD is giving us a bearish signal. Okay, I can't really see on our Ichimoku. Okay, you can see prices kind of bouncing off our cloud, or maybe even moving into the cloud. I can't. Okay, it's kind of still moving above the cloud. Okay, but I'm expecting prices to continue to drop. Um, yeah, so it doesn't support my analysis, so I'm gonna remove my Ichimoku. Let's look at Bollinger Bands, EMA, SMA. Prices are moving below the EMA and SMA, so that supports our analysis. Bollinger Band wise, it is moving in the bottom band. It isn't peaking out of the bottom line, so it's not a very strong bearish signal, but it's still pretty bearish. Let's also look at RSI and stochastic. Okay, so there is no descending trend line here, but you can see prices generally dropping on both RSI and stochastic, especially with stochastic moving into the oversold regions. Okay, so that's for Bitcoin. Okay, any questions? Let me just check our chat. Kiwi dollar. Okay, let's look at Kiwi dollar. Oops. Why is that? Hmm. Okay, sorry, just a second, guys. Hmm. Can you guys see my charts? Yeah, no, right? Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Hmm. Okay, let me try opening it in another um, tab. Hmm, that's so weird. I'm so sorry, guys. Let me just give me 1 second. Okay. Um, I know it's a bit zoomed in now. Just give me 1 second to try and figure out what happened. Um, okay, but I think you guys should be able to see my charts now, and that's all that matters, I think. So let's look at Kiwi dollar because we have a request for that. If there are any issues again and you guys can't see my charts, just let me know in the chat. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, prices generally dropping. On our daily time frame, um, oh, I had a question as well about what is the Nike tick. So I'm gonna show you here as well. So the Nike tick, which I briefly mentioned earlier, is basically this kind of shape. So we're basically taking this the shorter end of the tick and we're looking at the levels that are greater than 100% um and finding levels that line up with it with your horizontal levels. So here for example I have my 138 that lines up with where price is currently at. This would just kind of be an intermediate level. And then for my first support, it lines up nicely with this 161.8. Okay. So yeah, so here I'll keep the 138 and the 161. So yeah, that's what the Nike tick shape is about. Okay, so quickly getting back to um our levels. This will be my first resistance. Mm, yeah, I'm happy with this. So now I'm gonna go in with my retracement first. Okay, my 23.6 lines up with my first resistance. Um, we have a 100% that lines up with my first support. Now going in with our indicators, Ichimoku MACD. You can see MACD giving us a pretty bearish signal. MACD, yep, you can see the red signal there. Ichimoku prices are moving below the cloud, so that's also giving us a bearish signal. Now looking at our Bollinger Bands, EMA, SMA, RSI, stochastic. You can see RSI and stochastic generally moving into the oversold regions as well. Um, Bollinger Bands, you can see prices are breaking below that bottom band, so that is a bearish signal as well. EMA and SMA prices are moving below, so that's also a bearish signal. Okay, so I am expecting prices to continue to drop out of this intermediate support towards our first support. Okay, if prices, because it is quite close to our first support. Um, yeah, I'll maybe just move first support a little down. So this is in line with the two swing lows and also a whole bunch of Fibonacci levels, so that 100% and also that Nike 161. Okay, any questions? Let me just check the chat. Okay. Also to answer your question about the Nike tick and also I guess any questions you guys might have on any Fibonacci's, you can check out this website. It's just the forexarmy.com. And we go through quite clearly and quite in depth a couple of examples and guidelines on what to look out for when you are using different Fibonacci techniques. So the retracements that I always use are here as well. How to draw your trend line. Uh, so the Nike tick. This is the projection that I was using as well, which uses the flash kind of shape. Um, we also have the negative levels, which I didn't use today. Let me show you the Nike tick. Okay, so the most important would probably be looking for confluence areas, which is what we do. So there are a bunch of examples on how to look out or how to identify them. Mm, so if you see here, this red arrow, that's where we drew our Nike tick, and it's an inverted Nike tick. So the 127 lines up with this confluence area here. And then you can see price bounce off from that area. So that's an example of it. There's also some trade management techniques on where to place your stop loss and take profit in relation to your confluence areas. Okay. I think that's all the time that we have for today. So I'll stay behind for any other questions. If there are no other questions, have a great Happy New Year. And thank you guys for joining me and have a great rest of your week as well. Thanks, everyone. Bye.